Why does saving for a house feel impossible when your parents bought theirs for the price of a decent car today? Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to discuss. The game of home ownership has fundamentally changed, and most financial advice still pretends we're playing by 1995 rules. While behavioral finance shows us exactly why our brains struggle with long-term saving, the real story lies in how economic systems have shifted the goalposts entirely. Let me paint you a picture. Meet Jessica, a 28-year-old marketing coordinator earning $65,000 annually in Denver. She's doing everything right according to traditional advice: budgeting apps, automatic transfers, skipping lattes. Yet, after 2 years of diligent saving, her $15,000 emergency fund barely covers a down payment on a storage shed, let alone a house. Meanwhile, home prices in her area have jumped another 12% this year. Jessica experiences what behavioral economists call the hedonic treadmill in reverse. Instead of adapting to positive changes, she's constantly adapting to financial goals that move further away. Now consider fictional character Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones. Despite being born into immense wealth, he understands something crucial about money psychology. In the show, he frequently mentions how gold loses its power when everyone expects it. His character demonstrates loss aversion, a key behavioral finance principle where people feel losses twice as intensely as equivalent gains. When his family's wealth becomes threatened, Tyrion doesn't just save harder, he completely reimagines his relationship with money and power structures. Both Jessica and Tyrion face the same psychological challenge. They're fighting against systems designed to benefit those already holding assets. Tyrion recognizes the game itself has changed. This connects to what behavioral finance researchers call system justification theory. Our brains are wired to believe existing economic systems are fair and legitimate, even when they clearly disadvantage us. We internalize failure to save for a house as personal shortcoming rather than recognizing structural barriers. Consider the numbers behind Jessica's struggle. In 1970, the median home price was roughly 2.2 times the median household income. Today, that ratio has exploded to nearly 6 times median income in many markets. Meanwhile, wages adjusted for inflation have barely budged since the 1980s. Jessica isn't failing to save because she lacks discipline. She's attempting to achieve a financial goal that requires 3 times more relative wealth than her parents needed. The psychological impact runs deeper than numbers suggest. Behavioral finance identifies something called temporal discounting, where our brains heavily discount future benefits in favor of immediate rewards. Saving for a house down payment triggers this bias intensely because the timeline stretches so far into uncertainty. When people realize they need to save for 8 or 10 years instead of 3 or 4, their motivation systems break down entirely. Here's where class dynamics become crucial. Upper middle class families often receive help with down payments from parents or relatives. This family wealth transfer, sometimes called the bank of mom and dad, creates an invisible advantage that individual saving strategies can't match. Jessica competes against buyers who don't just save differently, they play by entirely different rules. The psychological research reveals something fascinating. People from middle-class backgrounds often experience what researchers call aspirational class anxiety. They maintain lifestyle expectations based on their parents' economic reality, while facing significantly different financial constraints. This creates cognitive dissonance that makes saving feel simultaneously urgent and hopeless. Meanwhile, the financial system itself reinforces these psychological traps. Banks market savings accounts with interest rates that barely keep pace with inflation, then offer credit cards with limits that exceed annual salaries. The messaging suggests spending is normal and saving is exceptional, when economically, the reverse should be true for most people. Tyrion's character illustrates another key principle called reference point theory. His reference point for wealth is his family's castle and gold mines, not his individual earning power. When that reference point changes, he adapts his entire financial strategy rather than simply saving harder within the old framework. Real people need similar reference point shifts to navigate modern housing markets effectively. The psychological literature shows that financial goals need to feel achievable to maintain motivation. When saving for a house requires such extreme lifestyle restrictions that the goal timeline stretches beyond reasonable planning horizons, people unconsciously abandon the goal, even while consciously pursuing it. They go through the motions of saving while their brain has already given up. This explains why traditional budgeting advice often fails. Telling someone to save 20% of their income for a down payment assumes that's mathematically possible within their lifestyle constraints. For many people, it simply isn't, regardless of their discipline or commitment. The advice treats a systemic problem as an individual failing. Class implications extend beyond just family wealth transfers. Higher income professionals often receive benefits like stock options, retirement matching, and bonus structures that create multiple paths to asset accumulation. Working class jobs rarely offer these wealth-building mechanisms. The advice to just save more ignores these structural differences entirely. Behavioral finance also reveals how reference groups influence financial decision-making. Jessica compares her progress to friends and colleagues, many of whom face identical challenges. This creates what researchers call pluralistic ignorance, where everyone privately struggles while assuming others are succeeding. The isolation reinforces feelings of personal failure rather than recognition of shared systemic challenges. The psychology of housing markets also involves what economists call winner's curse. In competitive markets, the people who successfully buy houses often overpay relative to fundamental value. This creates pressure for everyone to bid aggressively, pushing prices further beyond reasonable affordability metrics. Buyers who maintain financial discipline often get priced out entirely. Consider how this affects saving behavior. When people see others stretching financially to buy houses, it creates social proof that extreme financial risk is normal and necessary. The psychological pressure to match these behaviors can override rational financial planning. People abandon conservative saving strategies not because they lack willpower, but because the market rewards increasingly aggressive financial behavior. The temporal aspect deserves special attention. Behavioral research shows that financial goals beyond 5 years feel abstract and unrealistic to most people. Yet, in many markets, saving for a house down payment now requires 7 to 10 years of disciplined saving. This timeline mismatch creates psychological stress that undermines the entire saving process. Furthermore, the uncertainty compounds the problem. Jessica can't predict where home prices will be in 5 years, what her income will be, or whether the market conditions will favor buyers or sellers. This uncertainty triggers what psychologists call ambiguity aversion, where people avoid decisions with unpredictable outcomes. The result? Paralysis disguised as procrastination. The class dimension becomes especially clear when examining generational wealth transfer. Families with assets can help children with down payments, essentially allowing them to skip years of individual saving. Families without assets cannot provide this advantage, creating a two-track system where individual effort matters far less than family wealth position. This connects to broader questions about merit and opportunity. The financial advice industry often frames homeownership as a reward for good financial behavior, but the reality shows it's increasingly determined by family wealth and timing rather than individual saving discipline. Your money move for this week involves something I call reference point arbitrage. Instead of comparing your saving progress to local home prices, research markets where homes cost significantly less but offer similar lifestyle benefits. Don't necessarily move there, but use those prices as your psychological reference point for what housing should cost. Then, calculate how much you'd need to save monthly to to afford a house in that market. Set up automatic transfers for that amount into a separate account labeled with that city's name. This psychological trick helps your brain maintain motivation by anchoring to achievable rather than impossible targets. Your subconscious will register consistent progress toward a realistic goal, maintaining the motivation needed for long-term saving success. The key insight? Sometimes changing your reference point is more powerful than changing your behavior. And if this breakdown opened your eyes, don't stop here. The next video dives into another piece of money psychology that quietly shapes your financial decisions every day. You'll never look at your habits or the system around you the same way again. I'll see you there.